Good afternoon. Hope everybody's enjoying the conference so far. My name's Karl Samp. I'm the Executive Director up at the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation, one of the community giving partners. And Terry works with me as well. So I've been in this job just probably a little over 6 years, closing on 6.5 years now. Prior to that, I was kind of doing independent consulting work for about 9 years. Primarily with the Blandon Foundation on their rural broadband initiative, and then also did work with other initiative funds around the state because 9 years before that I worked for the Initiative Foundation out of Little Falls. So I was a vice president of the grants and training program. So I've primarily been in the program field, part of working with foundations until this job. So it's my first gig at the development world. So it's been fun and fascinating and great working with our board and Terry. So this is a presentation I gave for the Kansas Community Foundation this last fall, and it was an hour long. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides quicker than I did at that one, especially around some of the standard Minnesota Council on Nonprofit board roles and things like that. But by and large, we'll hit all the important things about taking that next step. So we are part of the Community Giving Network, and you probably heard enough about us already. But Alex, Brainerd, Central, Minnesota Community Foundation, Carver County, and Wilmer area are the primary partners, and then we have 6 affiliate funds as well in our area. So Brainerd was established in '98. We're led by a 13-member board of directors. And we have about 18.5 million in assets. We were over 20 at the end of the calendar year, but we're actually about 18.7 right now. We're also at about 125 funds right now. Since I did this presentation, we've grown by 12 new funds. When I started in 2016, we were at 7 million, and we had 72 funds. So for those first 18 years, we grew to 7 million, and then in the last 6, we've gone up by about, well, at one point it was 13 million. So we have accelerated our growth, and I'll talk about what I think are some of the reasons for that. We've made over 8 million now in grants to the community, and much of that's, we're starting to capture more and more of that locally. We've been pretty intentional about trying to find more and more opportunities for donors to give locally and keep those dollars in our community. I think there's a session going on right now about economic development and philanthropy, and I really feel that's the case. The more of those philanthropic dollars that we can capture and keep locally in our community, and that are going out in grants to our nonprofits, and in turn they're paying the salaries and they're spending it in our community. Same with the fees that go to us. Terry and I spend the money in our local communities, so really capturing those philanthropic dollars, keeping them working in our community, we think is really part of a healthy economy as well. We like to say we make philanthropy easy, and our real tagline, though, is we help generous people change lives and communities through philanthropy. I want to talk just a little bit about, if you're a leader, as a staff, as a board member, an important thing that leaders need to do is always name the reality. It's the ability to recognize the need to change and make it happen, having the skills to make that happen. So if change is happening faster outside your organization than inside, the end is in sight. And a bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn, right? Too fast. When I worked for Blandon and the rural broadband program, we were trying to get businesses, and this is starting from 2009 to about 2016, but in that earlier period, 2009, a lot of them didn't have a presence online, didn't have websites, didn't have social media pages. So we're trying to get businesses to come alongside this idea that, hey, you got to start getting online, and and we were trying to send them to the extension training programs for doing that. Well, we weren't getting much success getting sign-up, so we started doing this change presentation at chamber luncheons in the communities we are working with. And I'll tell you, we started going through this, and we started sharing the statistics of how many people were going online, shopping online, even when they were going to buy local. They were going online to check price points of a product, reviews on the retail store, different things like that. And started sharing some of that, and then it was this quote: "You might not like change, but you'll like obsolescence even less." That really sent them to the sign-up sheets. Now, for us, I'm just going to throw it out. As community foundations, what are some of the things, the challenges we're facing that require us to maybe make a turn in the road now? Commercial funds, yeah, that's the biggie, right? I mean, that is our primary competition right now. And just about every one of our major financial advising institutions now has a charitable arm. You know, we were just talking to Stiefel yesterday. They've got one now. Edward Jones has one now. Raymond James has one. You know, so everybody's got that arm. So we're really trying to look at what do we have to sell about ourselves that's different than the others. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to just go through this really quickly, but I found in a lot of the work that I've done in community development work and nonprofit, I did a lot of nonprofit strategic planning when I was consulting, and we were often finding organizations were in this mode of change, but we're really struggling with how to deal with it, and this really helped folks think through it, this formula that we came across. And one is that when we have a shared vision paired with the skills to identify the need to change and to make it happen, that we have incentives, we know why it's important to us, resources and action plan, we can create change. So I just want to say a few words about each of those items. So that whole idea of vision, and it's not just a vision, it's a shared vision. So when you engage people in your organization, in your community, with helping to create that shared vision, there gets to be more of a sense of ownership, and people are more likely to act on its behalf. Skills. The skills to create change often are around these ideas of how to collaborate, how to coordinate, how to communicate, how to celebrate. You know, I'm missing 8 in there somewhere too. But you know, they're really important skills that we need to create that change that we want to make. Incentives. We always think right away, the first thing is the old, what's in it for me, you know, and that's really important. And like I said, for those businesses, you know, when we convince them, you know, that your future may well depend on you, you know, making these changes or not, you know, that was an incentive to them. But also in an organization, in a community, there's a couple of incentives that are cheap, and one of them is recognizing good work, and another is celebrating success. And taking the time to, if you're on a board, you know, to recognize the good work of your staff, your fellow board members, celebrate the successes and milestones. When we hit 15 million, I brought a bottle of champagne to the board meeting, and we popped a toast, you know, to celebrate hitting that milestone for us. So we'll have to do it again when we get back to 20 million, I guess. So resources. First thing we always think of is what? Money, right? Okay. I will argue that the more important resources are our human capital, so the skills that we have in our teams, on our board. Time is a huge resource that can be often our biggest limiting factor. And of course, you know, money is certainly one of them. And then finally, having an action plan and acting on that. So having a step-by-step process, in our case, a strategic plan on how we're going to achieve what we want to achieve. So without that sense of vision, of shared vision, you know, there's a confusion. It's the old Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Start with the end in mind, right? So whenever I did consulting with the board, I would start with the question, what will success look like? What will make you really happy with me? Okay? And that's where I wanted to start. If I knew what the end goal was, you know, I could move on. Same thing for us, you know, having that vision of where we want to be, what we want to get to, what we want to do. Without it, you're confused. A great question raised about it in our board discussion today. You know, what does the end look like? Where are we heading with this? So, without those skills, it's kind of like starting a new job. You have that sense of anxiety, right? You haven't learned all the things you need to learn to get that done, so we get to be anxious with it. Without those incentives and knowing why something's important to us, and we don't celebrate successes, we don't recognize good work, we get this sense of resistance that can happen. Without the resources, we know where we want to go. We have the skills to get there. We know why it's important. We even have a plan. But without those resources, we can be very frustrated, right? And then finally, without the action plan and action and actually moving on things, there's that treadmill effect. So, when you have your plan, I encourage you every once in a while, pull that thing out and take a look and kind of hold yourself accountable for how you're moving towards your plan. When I would do strategic planning, I would usually set up a 6-month follow-up with the board and come back 6 months later and see how you're doing on that strategic plan. And the people that I was mostly in contact with would say, you wouldn't have believed the flurry of activity in the last week. So when people are held accountable and they know what they have to report on, are they doing what they said they were going to do? It was an important factor. So here is the summary of what I felt were the 10 most important things for us accelerating the growth that we've had at the foundation. First, staff up, and I'm going to go through some of these, or all of these in some sort of detail. In order to staff up, you have to raise operating capital, right? Having an engaged board and a board commitment to helping to raise that operating capital is critical. Visibility and marketing in your community. When I was hired on, Tom, what did you say about the Community Foundation? We're the best kept. Yeah. Best kept secret in the community, right? Nobody knew who we were, what we did. So the biggest charge I would say the board gave to me when I was hired, we got to increase our visibility, okay? And then bringing Terry on has been, just another one of those accelerants for us. Terry's got a lot of expertise and experience in marketing and does a fantastic job for us in that area. You have to nurture your existing donors. You have to nurture your professional advisor. Since 80 to 85% of our referrals come from them, that's where you need to spend some time. Recognize your supporters and philanthropy. And then sustaining that growth through management fees and unrestricted funds. And finally, pray for a bull market, right? That one I can't help you with much. We could sure use it right now, though, couldn't we? So it's a wonderful thing. And it's been a great, and it's been a great run up until January of this year. So it's really helped us. So let's spend a little time on each one of those areas. So first off, and I'm kind of taking Steve Jewell's word for this because he's been around, in this field much longer than I have. But experience tells us most often that staff community foundations grow considerably faster than unstaffed ones. Provides a face to the organization. You get past the founders' issues that so many small startup community foundations have. And then, now how do you pay for them, right? How do you get them there? And the other thing I'll add, as far as putting a face to that organization, and it comes up later, is getting out to those financial advisors or professional advisors in your community. That's what a paid staff has time to do. So raising operating capital, the big three. Board commitment, and I'll talk about that in a little more depth. So nothing says commitment like cash, right? So when I was hired in early 2016, in 2015, we had a half-time executive director, 0.5, that's where we were at. We had $7 million. We were probably not even at $7 million when you made that commitment. And I'm looking at Tom. Tom's on my board back there, so, and feel free to chip in anytime you want, Tom, okay, because you were here longer than I've been, so. Well, one of our board members knew probably the wealthiest person in our community, and we had just recognized them at our annual dinner for their philanthropy the year before, and they put up a $25,000 matching grant to us to raise that much more, and our board made the commitment to contribute that amount. And they made 3-year pledges to do it over 3 years. And so, like I said, nothing says commitment like cash, right? So, and if not us, then who? If we don't care enough about our organization to contribute, why should somebody else? Then we've had fundraising campaigns. Every year we do a campaign, Terry and I. and with our board support and help. We're really stressing this idea of local, buy local. We call ourselves our Lakes Proud Community Foundation. So our Buy Local campaign in Brainerd that our chamber runs is called Lakes Proud. And so we say we're your Lakes Proud Community Foundation. And we, again, will talk about, keeping our funds locally, our philanthropic funds, even our fee funds. Yeah, we are more expensive than Fidelity Charities, Vanguard, Raymond James, et cetera. But how many of those dollars stay in your community and end up back in your businesses? None, okay? All the fee money for us stays in our community. So that's a big part of what we do. Campaign asks, stories, and when we first started our campaign, probably even before Terry got on, I was laying out all the statistics in my letter, where we're at, how many funds we had, blah, 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 how many grants we gave out. And I knew better. I had seen the Carnegie Mellon study where they gave people fake money, and then they gave the statistics of starving children in Africa, and then they told the story of Kofi, who died of starvation in a village. Who wants to take a guess at the difference in giving in that situation? It was 7-1 to Kofi versus the statistics. So Terry and I really switched up. We started gathering stories from our grantees and testimonials from the people that benefited from the grants we gave out and started using those. And we saw a pretty significant jump in our contributions from people who hadn't given to us before. So we were doing 50,000 the first 3-4 years. What was the last year, 78? Yeah, 78 last year. I don't know, about 92 this year in kind of cumulative contributions to either our campaign for operations or some of our other funds that are given out locally. So we're seeing more and more success by using stories. And then events. We have an annual dinner where we recognize a couple or an individual, or this year it's going to be a business, a credit union, for their philanthropy. And also, we sell tables, sponsorships, and we sell our awards, and we sell our videos, and we sell receptions. We get a lot of sponsorship dollars, and we've turned that into making $15,000, $17,000 in profit. But our real thing is still celebrating the idea of philanthropy and holding them up. Now, I'll say, after we've done that, that family, all of a sudden, we recognized them in 2015, the year before I came. They made that commitment for that $25,000 challenge grant to our board. We don't even ask for it anymore. It just shows up, end of June, every year, 25 grand. We don't say a thing. It just comes in. And another one that was there the first year, the family set it up. They had a relationship with my previous foundation. Their company, Donor Advice Fund, was with them, recognized them. By the end of the year, they'd set up a $100,000 Donor Advice Fund. Shortly after, they set up a memorial legacy fund in the name of the wife who passed away. Those events have been really important for us in recognizing people. And what we're trying to do is use them as inspiration to other people to become philanthropic as well. So we do really nice videos, tributes to them, get them up front, give them a nice award, et cetera. And then finally, growth of your unrestricted funds. And this is one, to be honest with you, we've not had a ton of success with. And if you were in the last session, you heard about Nebraska Community Foundation. And I made the comment that agricultural communities, like our Wilmer community, is seeing a lot of success with unrestricted funds. Us, not so much. The difference? You've had these families farming in these communities forever, century, and they have a real tie to that community, and they just give for the benefit of the community, not because they want to name a donor advised fund or anything. We live in a place where people usually have moved from somewhere else, they've got a cabin up there, and all of a sudden they figure, oh, I can work online now, and they move up. We have a lot of transients like me into the community. So there isn't that tie. So we've not had as much luck with unrestricted gifts. But we have grown our management fees. So you can imagine going from 7 million up to 20 million, that's a nice increase. And I always say agency funds are our friends. I don't think you sell philanthropy. That's my opinion. You let people know you're out there to help people when they are ready to be philanthropic. You work with your professional advisors so they know when a tax event happens in somebody's life, it might be a great time for them to be philanthropic. They refer to you, okay? But we're not going out there and saying, Holly, you need to set up a charitable fund, It's like Steve said, it's like being a prestigious law firm. You don't say, okay, you need my legal services now. No, you don't do that. You just get the word out, you market, let people you're out there so that when you're needed, they call you, okay? Agency funds, we can sell, okay? So we can help nonprofits grow their cash reserves, and we're pretty aggressive in pursuing agency funds. And we now have about $5.5 million in agency funds, and generating over $50,000 in management fees for us. So it's something that we do while we're waiting for some of the other things to happen. So this idea of engaged board members, this is one I'm going to skip over pretty quick. So these are from the Minnesota Council on Nonprofit website. So these are standard for any nonprofit organization, kind of the three things that board members have the duties of, and it's duty of care. So they have the best interest of the organization, and you can see what's all under there. So these are not necessarily for individual board members, but a board as a whole. There's a duty of loyalty, that they don't have a conflict of interest and no personal gain from a situation. And a duty of obedience, so following the governing documents and assure funds are used for lawful purposes. So again, this is for the board as a whole. So following statutes, filing requirements, and governing documents. And once again, a good thing about being part of the community giving network is we just need those one set that community giving holds that covers us. But these are the things that we put on every board agenda and every development committee agenda. This is what we hope we get from our board members. So we ask them to financially support the operations of the foundation. Once again, if not us, who, right? Encourage our friends to support the foundation. Buy and sell sponsorship for our events. Open doors to Terry and I, to financial advisors, to potential donors, okay? My board members are connected. They're just in a different crowd than I'm in, and they're in a crowd that can become our donors. Not me, not Terry, So we really need help with those doors being open for us. And then finally, be engaged as a board members. Stay involved, have good attendance, partake in discussions and events. Tom's been extremely active. Our treasurer is unbelievably active. He goes on numerous calls with me, sits on our investment committee, so when we're talking to organizations or people about how we invest, he can answer those questions because he's sitting in on all those discussions. It really makes a huge difference. This whole idea of visibility and marketing. So one of the things that I did early on, I don't do it as often now, but once in a while I still do, and that's hit the service club circuit, okay? So getting out there, they're always looking for programs. You got to have that 15, 20-minute program about what you're doing, why it's important, stress the local thing. They buy into that, those local business people, So getting out there and letting them know, and you never know who's in the audience. That's the great thing. You just never know who's out in the audience, and I'll tell a story in a second. Chamber events. So I try and get to just about every chamber after hours event. And that's where early on I met a ton of professional advisors was at those. So we would exchange cards, hey, can I buy you lunch, coffee? And I made a lot of my appointments there with professional advisors. But again, you're just letting know. When we announce, I say, Karl Samp from your Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation. And it's a conversation starter often. So church coffee talks. So I've offered and done probably 10, half dozen to 10 church coffee talks. and it's about charitable giving, And I'm not talking about giving to us necessarily. I'm saying we can help if you want to do a donor. I'm talking how to give to your church, in the most tax advantageous, method. Use your RMD, from your IRA, give to your church, So go down that list. I talk about legacy giving. Well, a couple years ago, there was a little old lady, probably about 4 years ago, a little old lady sitting in one of these church talks with about 10 people out there. And a year later, Terry's got a picture of her. About a year later, I heard about her supporting a local park in Nisswa. And she gave a really nice gift to build a pavilion and trails in this park. And then when she passed, she left about $1 million to 6 different charities in our communities, a couple of which had funds with us, And so we honored her and another woman with Legacy Hero Awards. That's a new award we added last year, and we'll be doing another one this year. So people who have left significant legacy gifts in our community. But she sat out in that church. Was that the key factor? I don't know. Could have been, So get out there and talk. We do press releases as often as we can. We have a thing called wrap. Terry's got a wrap here, so she can send those around. So a wrap is our Brainerd Daily Dispatch paper on Sundays. They offer a 4-page, full-color wrap, and it's called the wrap because they put all the ads from that Sunday's paper is tucked inside of that wrap. And that's $750. Now, most of our partners in our area have went to their paper and says, hey, the Brainerd paper does this. Will you do that for us too? And they have, for $750 if Terry does the layout. They charge more if they do the layout, okay? But it's a great way to get the word out to the community, and it's a great way for us to tell our stories, and we use for handouts at our annual dinner and different things like that. So that wrap has been a great tool. Once again, I stole that idea from somebody. One of my board members was in Florida, brought home this wrap, and I thought, oh, those would be great to have. Took a couple years for us to make it happen, but we did. E-newsletter. Terry, you chip in on any of this too. So we do a quarterly, or at least 3 a year, try and do 4 quarterly e-newsletters to our donors and other key folks in our community. We always do 3 different things in that. We tell a donor story, we tell giving strategies, and we tell a community impact story about our grant making or something like that. We've been also lately adding in giving opportunities for our agency fund partners. So we've been listing our agency funds and just saying, here's a great opportunity for you to support nonprofits in our community. So when we go to agency funds and talk to them about investing with us, these are the extra things we do for you. We promote you to our donors, okay? We hold them up at our annual dinner. We'll have a slide with our partners on there as well. So we've been doing a lot more of that promotion of our partners. So Terry, keeps our social media active. We do numerous videos on all our award winners, and sometimes we'll do them on some of our grantee partners as well. And hold up a brochure. So we developed a brochure that's called Changing Lives, Building Communities, and it's you can pass that around if you want, Terry, if people don't have that. And then we also did one for professional advisors. So we did one for potential donors and one for professional advisors. And then my board has given me a discretionary grant budget of about $10,000 a year. And with that, we sponsor a lot of stuff in our community, especially like music events. So music in the parks, music at the farmer's market. What are some other examples, Terry, that we're doing? It's often little things like that where we sponsor these things, our name gets out there, they recognize us publicly always, and it's been a nice marketing tool as well as supporting, good things that make our community a better place to be. So nurturing donors. We've already talked about our e-newsletters, and those are the areas we talked about. Fund reviews. So we picked up this idea out of AdNet down in New Orleans. I didn't bring that. It was Carol and Sarah brought this idea of these fund reviews. So we give a summary of our funds for our donors. So we call them in. We do a printout of all the gifts they've made to their fund, all the grants that have gone onto their fund, what the current balance is, how much interest they've earned over it over the time, what kind of fund it is it a flexible or an endowed fund. So we just go through everything, but we also say, some giving opportunities. Would you like to support the operations of the foundation? Would you like to contribute to our grant making? And we have gotten numerous gifts during those fund review processes that have stepped up and supported us. So, and then we talk about legacy giving also at that time.
So the question was about what kind of setting do we do the fund reviews? Usually one-on-one with them. So, they just feel at ease, maybe over a cup of coffee, and we have it all printed out, and we just go through their beginning gift, when they started it, what type of fund, as Karl said, and then we just kind of highlight, here's some of the grants that we've made in the past year, to these organizations. Did you know about this project? Did you know about this homelessness project? And next thing you know, they're asking questions, and they're like, wow, you kind of know more about what's needed around here in the community than I do. So can I use you as a resource? Or, and so that's what Karl's talking about, is they've actually come alongside of us in grant making, and it's been really good.
And we assemble everything. Before COVID, we'd assemble everything in one packet. Their fund agreement, all the information they would need, it was all in one place, so they'd kind of have an easy record of everything. So they really appreciate it. So nurturing professional advisors. So 80 to 85% of community foundation gifts come from referrals from professional advisors. So the goal is getting them to talk to their clients about their charitable goals. So that's what my goal is with the professional advisors, is just ask the question, do you have charitable goals? Okay? And those advisors that do that get 60%, this is according to the U.S. Trust Survey, 2020, they get 60% more word-of-mouth referrals for clients, and they have 74% of high net worth clients say they have a deeper relationship with their advisor when that is talked about. You can imagine why. I mean, it shows their client that they care more about them than just the fees that are coming in for the funds they hold. They're talking about giving away funds, and not just accumulating more. So it really sends a message to the client that they care about them and their goals. So I meet early on, the first 2 years, I tried to get to almost every professional advisor in our community. And then when we came out with those brochures, those professional advisors, I went back out again and delivered those to every professional advisor office in our service area and tried to get one-on-ones when I could with them. So, okay, thank you, Katie. We have a professional advisor newsletter. We use Crescendo and share information. So Courtney from our central office sends out something every month, I think, to professional advisors on particular strategies that might be out there. We have professional advisor events. We've been doing them online, webinars now. We're going to one a quarter. We were doing one every other month there for a while, but it was getting a little too much. We try and get free CEU credits to them when possible. We've had it over lunch where we'll bring them into a place and we'll buy pizza or whatever and have a lunch for them when it's talked about. And then whenever possible, we utilize local talent. Utilize local tax accountants who can talk about the new tax law changes or whatever. So it's another way to engage our professional advisors with us as well. So, and back down to here, so on this whole, we'll hear often from, especially financial advisors, we'll say, well, your fees are higher than Fidelity Charity. And I will say, how do your fees compare to E-Trade or Ameritrade? So it really, I see. So, yeah, it costs more to get that professional one-on-one concierge service that they give their clients and that we give their clients if they become donors. So that's how we kind of answer that. So if I'm talking to estate attorneys, I'm talking about, oh yeah, you can do a will through, Rocket Lawyer, right? A lot cheaper. Or accountants, I can use TurboTax for my taxes. And they get that then, that why that higher fee is charged by us. And then we'll also really stress that local idea. So recognizing, as I said, we have our annual award and philanthropy dinner, recognize local individual or couple. It often leads to new funds and support. It's kind of the classiest event in our community. The one guy who gives the $25,000 every year, he told me, at one of the events, he goes, this and the prayer breakfast are my two favorite events, every year. So, and he's got an 186-foot yacht. So, we have that legacy video then created for our websites. We get to tell the story, our story, in front of the right people. We have a lot of right people out in that audience. And raising funds is a bonus for us. We usually clear between $15,000 to $20,000. And then Terry held up that program that we use. That's a good marketing piece for us as well. And then we're able to tell those donor e-news on our e-newsletters and in our wraps. And we send out invitations for them to be our guests at other events. So we partnered with a local estate planning attorney office. She's a incoming chair of our board. We do that every year. And so they talk about estate planning. We have a CPA talks about tax implications in your estate plan, and we talk about charitable giving in your estate plan. So we partner on those, and then we invite those folks to those events. So sustaining growth. Management fees, right? It's a catch-22. You need the funds to generate the fees. It's what we all strive for, right? We strive to have enough management fees that we don't have to do a campaign for operations. We're not there yet. So we really worked hard on growing them the first 5 years I've been on. And this is that agency funds are our friend, okay? So we've really stressed that. So I just looked back. We had 8 agency funds when I started. We're at 26 or 7 at least right now. So we've grown by about 20 agency funds in 5 years. So we're adding about 4 a year. And I can't think of many more in our community now that might have cash reserves to come with us. We're kind of running out of them. So, yes, Steve. Yeah. Habitat for Humanity, YMCA, nonprofit organization, yeah. I'll give you a great example of this. We're getting close to time, but I think this is one of my last slides. YMCA had their own foundation, about $300 and some odd thousand. We've worked really closely with the Y in a lot of ways, and they elected to dissolve their foundation, put the fund with us. They had a payout of only 5% back from the foundation to the organization for operations. So when they set it up with us, they were talking about doing that. I said, don't do that. We use the FASB Rule 136. We do not set up an agency fund as an endowed fund. They're all flexible funds. And we just tell them, if you're not happy with us, just take it all back out. Do what you're doing before, okay? We have not lost one yet, okay? And it's a real advantage to us over other community foundations that don't do that, all right? So, it as it says up there, it's our lowest fund fee. But the YMCA, they set up this fund with us, and I said, don't tie your hands with us. So they created an internal policy, 5% payout unless 75% of the board voted to do more. Well, COVID hits, membership, right, down the tube. They had to draw out about $175,000 to meet cash flow, okay? They put out a call to the community. They raised about $200,000 back in the fund. A year later, rainstorm hits. They have a flat roof. The drain plugs, floods the $150,000 of uninsured damage. This is a rainy day fund for them. okay? A true one. They'd fix it, put the call out to the community, funds back up again higher than it was before. But it's there for them as a rainy day fund when it's needed. So, yeah, now we have over $5.5 million in agency fund assets. So, up until the last 3 months, that was, they were loving the returns, I'll tell you that. So, and I told you about unrestricted funds and we talked about that. So we have about a minute left. Any questions? Before we go, you can come up and get a wrap from Terry if you don't have one already. Any questions out there? So we wish you well. If I can be of assistance, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. My contact information is right there. So we'd love to hear from you. Contact information is also on the wrap and materials going around. So thank you and good luck in growing your fund and your foundation.